what's really happening in the real estate market. We're going to talk about that right now. So today we're going to be talking about the Toronto real estate market from September 2022 to September 2021. Let's get started. So in September 2022, there are almost 48% less sales, okay? 1744 versus the year before, 3,397 homes that sold, okay? Now there are more listings available, okay? 5,485 versus 4,821, so that's about a 13.5% increase. And the average price stayed relatively stable, but we're gonna dive into that, what's the meaning of that shortly. Okay, so the average Toronto price was $1,061,876 versus the previous September of 2021, which was $1,090,196. Now, the type of market has increased to more of a buyer's market. So the type of market simply indicates how many homes that were purchased versus how many homes that were available. Okay, so once the type of market number indicates from 0 to 5, that's a seller's market. From 5 to 6, that's a balanced market. And from 6 to onwards, that is a buyer's market, okay? Now, the number of days on market has increased, okay? From 16 days to 22 days to sell the average home in Toronto. Now, let's bear in mind that these numbers that I'm gonna dive into are they're broken down by home types, but there are a lot of specifics and details that you need to consider for your particular situation. So for example, your location, okay? If you want something more specific, just let me know and I'll be happy to, dig deeper for you, okay? Now let's just go right into it. Oh, before I forget too, the average price only decreased by 2.6%, right? It's good to note and compare that number to other types of markets, such as, the stock market, which is down by 26.81% in the same time period, okay? And the crypto market dropped by over 57%, again, from September 2021 to September 2022. Okay, now let's get into it. So for detached homes in Toronto, the number of sales decreased by almost 45%. Okay, so there are 497 homes that sold versus the year before, 895 homes that sold. There are more listings available, okay, 1,504 versus 1,116. Okay, so that's almost 35% more listings. Now, because of this, it's resulted into, a downward pressure in price. So over 10.87% decrease for the average Toronto home, detached home, okay? So 1.58 million versus 1.77 million. Okay, now it is definitely switching to more of a buyer's market, but again, it's still a seller's market, okay? The active listings hasn't gone up enough. It is taking 5 additional days to sell a home in Toronto that's detached, okay? Now let's go into the next home. So the semis, right? So very similar to detaches, the number of sales decreased, okay? Almost 45%, 180 homes sold versus 325 semis, okay? Now there are, again, more listings available, 27% more. So 333 versus 262 in September 2021. Now, the average price also decreased by 7.19%, okay? So the average price, semi price was 1.21 million versus 1.3 million, okay, in 2021. And the type of market, it's still a seller's market, okay? And the days on market is 14 days versus 10, okay? Now, the townhome in Toronto, the average one, again, decreased to 53 versus 109 sales, okay, in 2021. And in terms of the active listings, which is interesting to note here, is that there are less townhomes in Toronto that were available compared to the year before in 2021, okay, from 126 homes versus 142 homes. In terms of the average price, this really led to an increase in the average price that sold, okay? So the average price that sold in Toronto for townhome was 1.19 million versus in 2021 1.14 million, okay? So that's almost $40,000 to $50,000 increase in a year. In terms of the type of market, it's still a seller's market, and it's taking 6 additional days to sell a townhome. All right, so the condo townhome in Toronto, okay, it's 118 sales versus 256. So it's almost, that's a 53% decrease, okay? And there was about 7.6% increase in more listings. So 368 condo townhomes versus 342, okay? Now the average price stayed relatively similar, okay, very stable, which is 831,000 versus 837,000 in 2021. Now, the type of market, it is definitely going towards more of a balanced market. It's still at 3.12, but comparing to the 2021, it was 1.34. Now, it's taking 11 additional days to sell a condo townhome. So, last but definitely not least, one of the most popular asset classes that were purchased in the condo apartments in Toronto, right? So, 875 homes that sold compared to 1792. Okay, that's over half of the number of sales that decreased. Okay, now in terms of active listings, there was over 6% increase in more active homes, right? 3,098 versus 2,918. Now, despite all this happening, more listings, less sales, the average price still gone up by 3.27%. Okay, 769,000 versus 744,000. Now, the type of market, it's still a seller's market, but it is trending towards more of a balanced market, okay, by 3.54. And it's taking additional week, 26 days to sell a condo apartment. So what these numbers dictate is that you need to consider that, obviously these are broken down by home types, but again, your situation is going to be very specific, okay? You can use these numbers as a general guideline, but, where you live, for example, in the type of home will be very different, okay, compared to these numbers. So the question I've been getting a lot is, Alex, should I be waiting to buy a home, right? I've had many clients that were actually pre-approved, but they decided to wait because they thought that the price decrease would happen, right? And it did to a certain extent. However, because the interest rates have gone up and their pre-approval was expired, they could no longer afford a home that decreased in price, okay, because the price decrease was not enough compared to the home monthly payments. And so because of that, they could not qualify for the same amount. Now, what I've been seeing is that it's taking longer to get a pre-approval. Usually it takes about a week. Now it's taking longer. Number two, the amount they're actually giving and lending is a lot less. So financial institutions, okay? So even if you got a raise in your job, okay, the amount that they're lending is still going to be less, okay? So if you have a pre-approval, right, really consider that you should be go ahead and pulling the trigger, because if that expires, right, your pre-approval expires, there's a chance that you're not going to get the same amount, especially considering how much the Bank of Canada is planning on raising interest rates. And the other question to me is, Alex, hey, what do you think the market's going to head it? Well, at the end of the day, I don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately. If I did, I'd be a very, very wealthy person, and you probably wouldn't be seeing me here. Just kidding. I love this. But, what we do know is that the Bank of Canada, when they raise rates, prices start to decrease, right? So they've said numerous times already that they will be raising rates again. And so if you have a cash offer as well, definitely negotiate, okay? Because even if the other offer has a higher dollar value, there's a significant chance that they may not get the proper financing for that, okay? So we like to say it as, when you sell your home, you need to sell it multiple times, right? You got to sell it to the home buyer, the appraiser, right, and the inspector. But when you do a cash deal, you only need to sell it once to the buyer, okay? Obviously, if you have a cash offer, I would put contingencies in there as a cash on the buyer side this time, right? I would offer, I would want a home inspection, I have to see a lawyer's review of, in case it's a condo, I want to make sure that there's a significant money set aside for improvements of condos in case there are, repairs needed. So if you find this video useful, please share this with your friend or family member. And if you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to help. Take care. Bye-bye.